So happy to have you on this afternoon. Today, we are talking about, again, like I always say, one of my favorite topics. Why? It's because it's a topic that I live every single day of my life, inside and outside of the office, and it's raising kids naturally. Raising kids naturally in the sense that they are given what is needed in order for them to function at optimal. There are so many layers and steps to this. But let me just say that wherever you're at in this journey, whether you are super deep into the natural lifestyle or just starting to dip your toe into it, living a natural lifestyle with your kids is the way that our bodies were intended. Let me just say this, that living a natural lifestyle for some people is like really anti-Western medicine. And for other people, it's not. And that's okay too. But the more and more that you incorporate natural things into your life, the more and more your family and your kids are going to thrive. Here's the reason why, is that we've literally been birthed from the building blocks of this earth, and our earth is natural, right? And we have more chemicals and more toxicity in our world than we've ever had. And by adapting more natural things, we're allowing our body to uptake what it needs, detoxify what it doesn't need, and integrate the stressful world. It's really important for us as parents and adults, really important for teenagers and or young 20s, as well as adolescents, really, really, really important for preschoolers and toddlers and infants, and for those of you who are listening who might have a baby growing inside of your womb. Really, really important time. During those initial times of formation, even preconceptively, right? So if you're thinking about this preconceptively, starting to live more of a natural lifestyle, the more naturally you live, there's something called epigenetics. Epigenetics means that like you have these set genes in your body, but the way that you live your lifestyle naturally or toxically or more mainstream or less mainstream, whatever it may be, your genes turn on and off, healthy genes and not healthy genes. So the healthier that you live, the more natural that you live, the upregulation of the healthy genes are going to happen. And when you upregulate the healthy genes, especially for a consistent period of time, because people want to be like, yeah, I started living naturally yesterday and I expect the results tomorrow. Reality is that's not the case. You're going to see the results of things that you consistently do in your life, like an exercise routine or a detoxification program in our world in chiropractic care. The things that you commit to and stay consistent with, because that's what yields results. It's consistency and commitment to things that you're going to yield the results on. So if we're talking about that preconceptive matter, preconceptively, you're living this life naturally, those upregulation of genes are going to happen. You're going to pass on better connection for your offspring that is going to be with inside the womb. And then when mom lives more naturally, when baby's in utero, then baby's going to be more natural on their way out. And then you're going to adapt the more natural lifestyle. Typically, when people dive into the more natural way of things, it's like this big snowball effect. You don't really just start. You start typically with this one thing, and then all these things begin to happen. You start cleaning up how you live your life. You start looking at sickness differently. You start looking at healthcare differently. You start looking at movement differently. And we're going to cover some of those topics today. This is a huge, huge topic within itself. I could probably talk for 10, 15 hours on this topic, but I'm going to condense it down and give you the most important factors that are going to create that natural foundation. And when you create that natural foundation, you change how you view it and you change how you approach it, your philosophy on living natural changes, then you get to make decisions differently out of that. And most people don't think it's not just semantics on how you look at it. It is the foundation of what you're making choices from. Okay, so we're talking about raising kiddos naturally. And we'll start from infancy all the way up through teenage years and things. I'll talk about things from all of those different age groups. But most importantly, as I say in all my webinars, is commit. If this isn't it, it's okay. Commit to something else. Commit to a different way, that a higher level of function and being. Commit to it and just start piece by piece. Don't look at the mountain. Look at the steps in front of your face. Look at the trail in front of your face as you walk up that mountain. Eventually, you'll get to that mountain peak, and you'll realize there's more valleys and peaks in order to walk, and you just continue to look on that trail. Within all of this, I know this is a lot of talking to begin, but within all of this, this is an evolution. This is an evolution of your understanding of what it means to live naturally. I'm still refining what that means. for me because I learn new things and I do different things. Things that I was doing a year ago, I'm doing differently now because I have an open growth mindset regarding living naturally. And that is a piece of this. That's something that you learn. That doesn't mean that you're a failure. Or don't call yourself a name that you shouldn't. If you do something and you learn different down the road that wasn't the best choice, just shift and move on. That's progression. That's change. And that's good. That's really important as a part of this, especially as a part of that foundation. So let's talk about the foundation. We talk about foundation in the sense of how are you approaching health within your family. So if we can view the world as a natural thing, that we are part of this natural, we are part of natural or living organisms that are on this earth in a natural perspective, that we can view the world as we're a part of that, right? And when we encounter things that are challenges, we don't necessarily have to knee-jerk back to the way that we were before. We can look at it in the sense of what can we do naturally? And within that, a little deeper space below that is when you're looking at things naturally and you're looking at it as part of the natural world, do we believe that we just treat things or we do things to get things out? We have to look at it and say, are we doing these things to fuel health? Are we doing these things to remove interference? Because the more you fuel health naturally, the more you remove interference naturally, the better the human body is going to function. My children are living proof. Kids that we take care of are living proof. They shine, they develop, they function, they interact with the world differently when they are free of interferences, free of toxins, live a cleaner lifestyle, have balanced central nervous systems, move differently. We make different choices for them. It's just they function differently. And then we can incorporate that as parents as well. If you're going to raise your kids naturally, you got to be living naturally too. You can't just do different things for your kids than you're going to do for yourself, because the reality is that you're the leader for your kids. So you got to do it yourself. So look at it in the sense of we're living naturally, we're fueling health, and we're removing interference, right? So when challenges come up, don't just knee-jerk reaction to, hey, such as like sicknesses, we need to treat this sickness as like, listen, how do we give our body more of the tools that needs in order to naturally fight these things off? Okay. That is mechanism versus salutogenic. You can look into more of that, but look at the world in that manner. That would be my recommendation, to look at the world in that manner. Sometimes we need to go after things in the sense of stressors that are locked within our system, toxins that are locked within our system, that we have to go out from removing an interference pattern. But it's not a treatment perspective, right? I'm not treating something that is wrong within me. I'm just removing interferences to the inborn intelligence that's inside my body, that was created inside me in order to be healthy. We were designed to be healthy. Our children were designed to be healthy and function well. There is pieces that are not natural that get into us, that interfere with us doing that way, and we're not doing things that are fueling our health. So I hope that makes sense. As a foundation, we move from there. Second would be big picture, the everyday things that you're going to do. In our world, we talk about this all the time in chiropractic, is neurology is number one. There is a reason, if you can hear that, here's my microphone. There is a reason our central nervous system is enclosed entirely in bone. The only external part of our central nervous system is what? My eyeballs, okay? That is an extension of my brain that I'm looking at this camera at, and you're looking at me through the screen at. There is a reason that majority of our central nervous system is enclosed inside brain. Why? It's because it's the boss. It's the most important. We need to make sure that our nervous system is functioning at optimum. A way that we do it, that we view as one of the best ways to do it, is consistent chiropractic care. Why? It removes interference on that foundation, and it fuels health. It removes interference to our neurological expression of how our central nervous system talks to our body, perceives the world, and it incorporates nutrition, gets stress out. We've got to be functioning well in that perspective. And there are so many things in the world that can bog that down, but this type of care brings it to that next level that creates that foundation of better function. So we need to make sure that we're taking care of our nervous system and creating balance and fueling our nervous system with chiropractic care and removing interferences to our nervous system with chiropractic care that are preventing us as the foundation of this healthy, natural lifestyle. As the boss, the central nervous system is the boss to how everything else functions. Okay. Then digestion, living clean, sleeping, movement. Think about these things from a natural perspective. Start with living clean because people want to talk about living clean. If it ain't natural, don't use it. It's how we roll by on our house. It's not natural, don't use it. And over time, if you're not living naturally and you use, let's say, something like artificial fragrance, every single person who gets away from artificial fragrance, for some time, their neurology adapts to it. So then when you smell an artificial fragrant, you are aware that it is an artificial fragrant, right? There's a lot of things out there, natural products that say they're natural, but they actually use artificial fragrance and artificial things. And that's where it can get really frustrating within this world of living naturally. And there are mom blogs, there are Instagram things that you can dig into to get a specific products, things that you need. If you talk about fragrance wise, if you have fragrance in your house, use an essential oil mixture like doTERRA or Young Living, right? For good natural scented things. If you need natural cleaning products, use things like Branch Basics. It's like an all-in-one thing for surface cleaners down to laundry detergent. It's amazing. It works awesome. Things like shampoos and body lotions, things like 100% Pure or InnerSense or whatever it be. I'm giving you things, but you can do the research yourself because that's a part of living this natural lifestyle that you do is you just do research and you learn things better and you do things better. And if there is a product that you want to tell me about, I'm stoked to hear about it because I'm always adapting and changing, right? But that's secondary, right, to neurologically functioning well. So don't get lost in the weeds of building your house up without creating a solid foundation. So make sure that foundation is strong neurologically. And within that neurological piece, I'm going to say one more thing is that if there's trauma and things in relationships, that's a part of your neurology, emotional part of your neurology, that there's things in your life, in your kid's life that need to get addressed, whether it's you or whether it's your husband or whoever it may be. And I'm speaking to you, mom, because most moms watch this. Most dads don't watch this. I wish they did, but maybe someday they will. If you are the one who's creating interference within your kids, right? I've definitely been the one to create interference in my kids with my stuff that I grew up growing in my life and being a parent, right? And doing things incorrectly and not saying the right things and approaching it with more anger than I should have. But it's a constant refining process of living myself more naturally and growing myself and shifting and changing and removing those interferences within my kids. So movement wise, let's move into movement. Okay. Movement, doing things naturally, movement, right? So this comes from getting your kids out and doing things globally, things that are going to feel them, play on the playgrounds, play out in nature, climbing on rocks, jumping off things, riding on swings, riding bike rides. Scooters are good. My kids ride scooters, but they're not the best. Unilateral things are not the best. Bike riding, playing ball, catching, things that are getting them globally moving. Gymnastics, not necessarily on the highest level, are the best. But dance, things that are coordination and how the body was designed to move, it's the best. If you're talking about more from a teenager perspective, encourage that teenager, let's say if it's a young man who wants to start weightlifting, encourage them to weightlift in a way that's going to support their natural movements. Calf raises, shoulder presses, super heavy bench presses, back squats aren't necessarily the best things for natural living movement. Things like Turkish get-ups or front racked kettlebell squats, lunges, crawling, pull-ups. Okay, push-ups are better than bench press. Okay, you do some push-ups. Different ways to move our bodies naturally, and especially these teenagers or fledgling teenagers, I should say, fledgling prepubescent little boys who, and not singling out the girls who want to weightlift too. That's a big movement right now. But if you want to weightlift, getting them the proper education surrounding that, right? To move naturally. And that applies to you, mom and dad, as well. So sleeping, natural sleeping. Turn off your Wi-Fi at night. It's going to be the big number one for me. It's not natural for you to sleep with Wi-Fi on in your house and constantly subjected to electromagnetic frequencies within your own home. And Wi-Fi is a big one. Turn your phone on airplane modes, mom and dad. Okay. I understand if there's external factors that you need to have your phone on, put it outside the room and put it on do not disturb and get it out of your sphere. So big ones, turn your Wi-Fi off. Another big one is get blue lights out of your house, right? Turn the TV off an hour before bed, no technology an hour before bed, have more orange glowish lighting, warmer lighting. If you want to get nerdy about it, 2700K or lower lighting. Nothing that's really high in blue lights, okay? Blue lights stimulate the brain and cause us to not sleep as well. They're not natural as the sun starts to go down. Why? As the sun goes down, it glows orange. You can look at it. That activates the pineal gland, gets your brain hormonally and neurotransmitter ready to go to sleep. Okay. What thing that we've learned as human beings and this biohacking, access to more things to be healthy in this world of progression in technology is blue light blocking glasses. Blue blockers is a brand name, but they're yellow tinted glasses. You can get them for your kids too. Recently I misplaced mine and I'm like lost without them. So I got to order a new pair. But those are really great to help our brain down regulate and start to get ready for that sleeping routine. A big piece. Okay. I hit on those. If you have any questions, just write them in the chat box or send me an email or whatever it may be. But a big one that everybody wants to talk about is sickness. Okay. Living naturally. And what does it mean when we get sick? Right. So let's change our perspective on that. We're not necessarily getting sick. Okay. That's one theory. That's the germ theory. What if we looked at it in the sense of saying that if we got a virus, it is known that we acquire genetic information from viruses. So let's say we get a viral thing or your child gets a viral thing and they're getting an upgrade. They're getting an information upgrade genetically that the world is giving them to better adapt to their environment. Okay. And the body also uses that time with symptoms such as fevers and coughs and boogery noses to detoxify, get lymphatics moving, give the immune system a flex, increase metabolic rate, whatever it may be. If we now begin to, even though it's uncomfortable for ourselves to go through that. It's uncomfortable for our kids. I just went through one and it was not comfortable. It was actually a lot of suffering and it was not fun. But I'm on the other side and I feel more upgraded. I feel more balanced. I feel more clear. And with that, the fever perspective, right? Within our kids, there is a lot of fear surrounding fever. And guess what? It's been sold to us by pharmaceutical companies. If you dig into the medical research, the American Academy of Pediatrics has a whole systemic review. Systemic reviews are looking at of literature surrounding a certain topic and analyzing all of the literature, all of the research to say, what actually is the research saying? The research says that within certain parameters, we should allow the fever to ride. Okay. And it's probably a lot higher than you think it would be, right? Within the first 3 months, it's questionable because why? The meningitis piece. If you're over a certain temperature, then they're going to look at, if you bring your kid to the ER, they're going to look at meningitis. But over the age of 3 months and they have a high fever, it's up to about 104.2, something like that. Let's just say 104, that we should let it roll. Is that if the body generates an increase in temperature, the body's doing that. The external environment's a normal temperature. You're not putting your child into a hot car and increasing the external temperature. That hot car is 120 degrees and within the body gets to 104 degrees. That's an entirely different perspective. And that's what the pharmaceutical companies have taken and said, if your child's fever gets too high, they're going to get brain damage. And there's nothing in the research to show that even if your child had a febrile seizure, and I'm not saying febrile seizures aren't scary, and most families are going to call 911 if their child has a febrile seizure, so a seizure from a high fever. There's nothing in the research that says there's neurological damage from a febrile seizure. There's nothing in the research that says that we're having negative effects from a higher fever. The body is increasing the temperature in order to fight things off. That's a natural way of looking at it. And I'm going to take it one step further. And I talked to a lot of families about this. Is I've clinically been running this thing that a naturopath told me about a while ago. She said that in their world of naturopathy and Eastern medicine, they call Fever is chi cooking. Okay. So the intelligence of the body cooks up. Okay. So that's an Eastern perspective. I took that in and I started looking at fevers in kids and saying, in my own kids, when my own kids got a fever, there is this progression that she told me too, is that there's this warp speed of development happening. Okay. And I've dug into the research, and the research says that when you have an increase in fever, you have an increase of blood flow to the brain, and your brain is more susceptible metabolically to uptake nutrients and things that it needs to by having that fever, that increased blood flow. So therefore, we're seeing a neurological progression happen when there's a fever. So it's more apparent when your children are younger, but I've noticed it in both my kids. I have a 5.5-year-old and a 19-month-old. And it's more apparent in my 19-month-old when he gets a fever, right? In our family, we allow that fever to progress and move through, and he gets adjusted throughout his fever to support his body, and we give things to support him. Foundationally, minerals, nutrients, he still breastfeeds, things of that nature. We cut out things like, when he's sick, things like dairy and sugar and whatnot, that he doesn't need, right? That aren't going to progress, that interfere with his body's way of naturally fighting something off. And when we view that fever, and I take note of what his development was like, because my wife and I are very intentional on how we raise our kids, and we're with our kids. If I'm here at the office like I am right now, my wife's at home with the kids, and vice versa, right? That's how we live our life, and that's how we've chosen to raise our kids. We're very attuned to his development. So I'm very attuned to how he's functioning. And when he gets a fever, I'm keeping track. I'm looking at how has he developed post-fever. And every single time he has a big increase in when he was crawling into standing, and standing to walking to running. Right now is his language, right? He just had a fever recently, and his language skyrocketed after that fever. And I've watched my daughter go from this kid who's butting up between that, time of being a preschooler and a bigger kid. And she recently had a fever, and she just went full into big kid. Does she still have some regressions? Yes. But she went way more into being a big kid. She listened more. She understand more. She asked higher level questions. Her neurology just exploded in all the best ways after that fever. And whether that's increase in blood flow or just increase in metabolic activity, is when we're going through fevers, we have an increase in metabolic activity. We're sweating, our body's increasing the temperature, organ systems are functioning differently. We're getting this big, massive shift. And if we can look at sickness in ways of an upgrade, and how can we support this little body during a sickness, during an upgrade, other people call it, during an expression of health, because it's actually a natural, healthy expression to fight off viruses like that. How do we look at it as an opportunity for our children to develop? How do we look at it in the sense of how the world program it so that it is a big piece of our child's development within the first 2 years? Okay. This is different than your child having sickness week after week after week after week. That is called dysfunction. We don't need that to happen, especially when we get into the bacterial infections of things. When we have consistent bacterial infections, that means that our immune system is not functioning the way that it was designed. So if we're consistently getting sick month after month after month after month, we have to look at the ways in which we need to clear that interference and fuel more health, because the body needs to function at a higher state by not getting symptomatic all the time. It's important to get symptomatic. You should do it a couple times a year. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. You can't escape it. It's not going to be comfortable for you or your kids, but everybody goes through it because it is an important expression of the human being. Okay. We'll round this back, okay, because I could talk even more and more and more and more and more about this, is that everything that you're doing, whether it's bringing your children to the chiropractor, yourself to the chiropractor, your family to the chiropractor, whether it's detoxifying your kids, whether it's giving them nutrients, whether it's getting them to move better, whether it's looking at their immune system, look at it from the perspective of, am I fueling health? Is this thing that I'm doing fueling health and or removing interference? Okay, detoxifying your life, getting toxins out of your life, that is removing interference. Giving your kids naturally based vitamins, that is fueling your health. There's things that hit both, like chiropractic care, that fuel health and remove interference. So just start walking the path. Commit to walking the path of living more naturally for yourself and your kids. And I will promise to you that you will notice a difference. If you got to take some videos, if you got to write some stuff down from where you start now, from a year from now, but just start walking that path. And if it's just, I'm going to change my laundry detergent this week, great. I'm going to get my kids under consistent chiropractic care, great. I'm going to get my kids moving more naturally outside, great. I'm going to limit screen time before bed, great. I'm going to turn off the Wi-Fi this week, great. Don't look at the mountain, look at the trail ahead of you, because it is the best trail to walk for yourself, for your kids, for your family, and you will reap the rewards of living a more natural lifestyle for your kiddos and for your family. Any questions, throw them in the chat box. Not, send me an email, talk to me in the office. Love talking about this topic. Love you guys.